Good morning. We are recording, and it's sunny out, and it's so exciting to me because I'm having spring fever. And
is that contagious? Do I need to? Is this?
Do we need to start again?
No, we're good. Let's roll with it.
This is good. This is good. You know what? I think we're all feeling it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think we're feeling it more because we just got back from a place where we had a high of 28.
Well, I was just going to ask you,
And,
hearing me say that, how does that make you feel after you were just in?
It doesn't give me spring fever or anything like that. It just says, man, it's cold here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you're in California and you strike up a conversation because you're standing next to somebody in line for, 25 minutes, and they say, so where are you guys from? Canada. And their eyes just get so big. Because I love Americans, but we couldn't get more specific than Canada.
Yeah.
And so we said Canada, and it was just, what? Do you guys have snow there? Well, technically, yes. But
it is February.
But think about it. Anywhere outside of California, I'm pretty sure everybody else has snow except for Florida and Texas and stuff like that. So,
that's funny.
I'm not feeling spring fever. I'm feeling a little bit more cold here.
Yes.
And it wasn't as cold until we got into Vancouver and we had to walk from the terminal to our airplane and get onto the airplane.
Oh.
And it was just, the wind was just whipping through there on Monday night. And so, that's when we felt the most cold and we're like, oh, we're home. Shoot.
Yeah.
Well, in case people didn't know, because we didn't tell any. I don't know if we told
it's a
people where
secret.
you were.
Did we?
You got to tell us a little bit about where you were and what.
Yeah.
what
I
were
went to
some
California,
highlights?
I said.
Yeah. You know, one of the things you got to try next time is when their eyes get big, just ask them, hey, do you know where I can exchange my Canadian Tire money for dollars? And just see what they do.
And just show them that one guy with the Scottish beret.
That's right.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, what do you guys think this is worth down here? Can I get a nickel for this?
This is our president on here.
I'm feeling a little bit attacked here because
we are. I'm sorry.
No, but it's funny. But I remember hearing about Canadian Tire and thinking, what? They're really into tires? Like, what? It was just such a
it confuses me. Bank of America.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I guess.
Right. Does not everybody bank at Bank of America? That should be, are you even patriotic if you don't bank at Bank of America?
Yeah.
Anyways, we digress quite a bit.
So.
Anyways, we had a wonderful holiday. We went down south to California, and it was beautiful. And we stood in long lines, and we saw Mickey and Minnie and many other things, and it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Hey, do you have one little story or one little highlight?
There's so many, but I would say for me personally, going into Star Wars Land,
yes,
I felt like it does say kids of all ages is kind of their thing, to this welcome to this happy place. And when I got into Star Wars Land, it was a very happy place for me. And it was something that I've been enjoying since 80s and 90s, and kind of just came to fruition then, and it was just very magical in that moment, and seeing the whole thing through my kids' eyes, and princesses, and just a lot of enjoyment and a lot of insane food and beautiful things. So
that's great. Yeah. Well, it was
being there as a family.
Yeah.
Great that you got to do that. And I'm sorry you're back to the cold.
Yeah.
But at least we have a little sun for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking back to Sunday, we talked about authority. The Pharisees finally come up to Jesus and they're like, who's giving you authority to do this stuff? And then Jesus asks a counter question. We talked about that. But to intro it, I said one way we think about authority is through law enforcement. and border guards, crossing borders. And I shared that little funny story of the policeman and his, his fight with the border guard. But when I mentioned to you, do you have any border stories? You said, how many do you need?
I said pick a continent.
Yeah. Chris has done a lot of traveling.
Yeah,
I think you've had
So,
quite a few run-ins, probably.
I think you got to
Well,
tell us a
run-ins
border
is
story.
maybe the wrong word. I like there's never been handcuffs. Let's be clear
Yet.
about that. Hey now. But yeah, no, lots. So it's. There was a time. Okay. I know I'm tripping over my tongue because it's like I've got 9 stories all trying to get out at the same time. I think so between Canada and the US, right? We did that crossing a lot, like in the Langley area, Vancouver area, in college. And I remember sometimes being really nervous at the border, and like they're like, "What are you bringing in?" One night. This is what the American side asked as we're coming in. And we were just going down for like Taco Bell. Like it was the dumbest thing to think of when you think like you would drive an hour each way just to get really bad food. Yes, we did.
I love Taco Bell. So.
I know.
It's really good food as long as you don't look at what it is.
Right, exactly.
So it's really good food.
So when you're, 20 years old,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, it's good food. Yeah. And anyways, so we do that. And I just remember one night they're like, what are you bringing in? And I'm like panicked because I didn't anticipate the question. I'm like, so I probably sound super guilty.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm looking around the car going, what are we bringing in?
Yeah.
I mean, it's us. The correct answer was nothing.
Yeah.
But I saw a couple of guys had thrown toques on the dash. I'm like, just some hats. And the guy's like, what? And I thought, oh shoot, we're getting pulled over. This is it. We're going to be here all night. Sorry guys, no Taco Bell for us. And he's like, that's it? Well, anyways, so we were on our way. And that was like, it's one of those things where it's easy to get. I find myself easy to get flustered, right? Because they are a person of authority, and you just know that if you say the wrong thing, your car could be left in parts, right? And now you've got to like IKEA your car back together, which I am unequipped to do, even with the proper tools. And so I'm like, I don't want to mess this up. And it's really, it can be bad. Some of the more challenging ones are at border crossings where you don't speak the same language.
Yeah.
At least there, we all kind of, we joke about Canadian-American differences, but we really have a common language and a lot of commonalities. But like crossing from Romania into Hungary almost every time, and I've done that crossing that direction 3 times now, the last one was the smoothest, but in that it doesn't stand out as this was a problem. But the first 2 times, man, it took a long time. And the second of those, it was just Sheena and I, and we're on a bus, a small bus of people. And then you feel the heat of everybody else in the bus who are either Hungarian or Romanian and cross that border all the time. And they're like, oh, great, we've got these Americans holding us up, right? Because, if you travel internationally, you're American. That's just it. We are. Even though the passport says Canada. And because they don't know. They just are all the same. Anyway, so you just feel that heat of the van and the driver going, maybe I should have kicked these guys out. And, I don't know, they paid to get all the way to Budapest. And it just took forever as they hum and haw over our passports and do all the checks and all of that. And it can be just time consuming. And because, one guy has to make sure you're safe to leave, the other guy has to make sure you're actually safe to come in. And it's this awkward 3-step process because it seems like there's more than just the 2, and you're left scratching your head going, I wish we knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Am I walking out of here or what? Like, and I've done nothing wrong and all of that. So there's always, I think when you cross borders, you do bump into that authority, and the question is, are the people going to express appropriate authority, or is someone looking to, kind of like you brought up, right? Or is someone just had a bad day or looking to power? That's not a uniquely, Canadian-American border thing.
No. Well, it just shows power corrupts, right? Like power,
absolutely.
We get on a power trip, and the Pharisees, the religious leaders were on a power trip.
Probably the one border crossing that stands out as being like surprising though, was getting into Mexico. When we did a mission trip down to Mexico, we drove in. We flew to San Diego, rented a van, drove in. Didn't see a border. If I wasn't with 2 other vehicles, I would have not even seen a border guard. And it just been
Really?
like, yeah, because we rolled up through the gate. It was late in the evening.
Where did you go?
I don't know the name of the crossing. It was just south of San Diego. We just followed like the I-5 south. Boom. And they had like this traffic light system.
Yeah.
So if you get the green light, you're just on your way.
Right.
I got a green light, but the problem was one car in front of me got a red light. So now I'm like, where do I go? And I have no idea where I'm going. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the first vehicle gets stopped, and then the second vehicle stops with them, and I'm like, I guess I'm stopping too.
Yeah.
But which really confused the border guards.
Well,
So now
yeah.
I've got these guys with real big guns trying
Yeah.
to talk to me in Spanish.
Yeah.
I'm like, English? Hello?
I've crossed that, the Tijuana, and then there's one further east of Tecate or something. And
Okay.
I've crossed both of those, and it's an interesting experience. We always had to get off, but because we went in on a big bus. But then it's the same thing. As you're walking through, you push a button.
Yeah.
And inevitably, one of our group of 10 or 15, however many we were, every time we crossed, gets a red button to search through all your stuff. But you just, push your stuff through and go.
Yep.
So we've ignored you. Have you
No.
had any border crossing experiences? Or
No, like not anything like that, and nothing weird or odd. It's just it is interesting. Even just going through security a couple of times. You're kind of passing this point and going into like an international area, and I thought it was really interesting. But it's interesting how we get very flustered and in a certain airport there was security guards who were just very forceful and very vocal.
Yeah.
You have to, please put it there, and like they were very vocal, and they were just projecting.
Right.
So they weren't yelling at you, but it feels in that zone like you're getting yelled at, right? What I did find interesting, going back to kind of power trip, is that like when that person takes that hat off, they're not a security guard or a border guard anymore. They walk away and they're not necessarily in that position anymore. And it's just very interesting because it's something that's given to them, something that's kind of like bestowed on them. And that kind of got me thinking back to even, like the Pharisees, and like they felt like the authority happened within the temple. And everything was kind of given to Israel and the Pharisees and the Levites. Like that's where the things happened, and that's where it was all. But it was all given to them by God. And I think about even like when you're doing a marriage ceremony or something like that. You say at the end, the authority that has been given to me by the province of British Columbia, or something, right? Like you are given that authority in that particular moment, but you walk away and it's not necessary. So it's very interesting, I think, to kind of take it and use it like a hammer, or to actually say, I was given this as like maybe a gift, or given it as a tool, and being able to use it in that particular way. And that's I think very much an indictment on the Pharisees, that what Jesus was talking about, but also even how God actually works outside those areas that we think are often, this is where it all happens. It's supposed to happen here. This is where all the authority and everything, this is a central location. God actually works very often outside of those things. And not that I'm calling the church the temple, but sometimes God works very much outside of the church, or outside of the four walls of the church. And God works in very different places where he actually gives his authority and puts it into there because his Spirit is working there. And sometimes I think we miss that a little bit as well too.
Well, that is one point that we talked about a little bit on Sunday, is that exactly what you were saying. The religious leaders thought of the authority of religious matters as focused on the temple, and Jesus and John the Baptist came outside. And interestingly, Jesus, everywhere he went, anywhere he went, whatever he was doing, he carried this authority that wasn't a hammer, but it was just this is who I am.
And
Yeah.
sorry, think about Pilate as well too, right? Like Jesus says, the only authority that you were given was given. Well, the only authority that you have was given to you,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's an extremely profound statement for us to realize. But sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's good. I'm glad you jumped that in there because it fits. There's a couple other parallels in the New Testament that come to mind for me. Right, when we think about Paul's authority question, by the not his so much his authority, but his citizenship, which citizenship equals authority in some ways, right? Yeah. And what's he asked? Well, how did you get it, right? Because often when we are questioning someone else's authority, in our mind is, well, this is where my authority came from, and what I had to do, the hoops I had to jump through, the prices I had to pay to be, to have a platform or to have a voice or to have whatever constitutes that authority, and in that case it was citizenship, right? And what is Paul saying? I was born with it. In that way, no, mine actually does come from God. Because God put me in this place in this time. God, and he were that. I think too of another spot where the church leaders in Jerusalem, they hear about an outbreaking of the work of the Spirit in Samaria, and their first thought is Samaria. God doesn't work there, right? And but instead of just condemning it and going, nope, that's corrupt, that's not right, they went to investigate. They said, let's go see. And they had that openness to that idea that God's authority can show up. God can work outside of what we know. And let's go look and see what's going on there. And they went. Yeah. And I think, Kevin, what you said is really, really valuable, because when we hear of something at work, we probably should follow that Jerusalem leader model and go, oh, let's go learn more. Let's go see. Because the early church writers, like the apostles and first followers of Jesus, they talked about discerning, and they talked about testing the Spirit, and they talked about those things, not to say assume it's wrong, but just to say, let's go see. Let's go have a look and understand and trust that if it really is a work of the Spirit, then the Spirit in us will help us recognize that.
And that openness without bias, I think, is extremely important, because you could also hear about, something is happening over there, and right away be biased one way or the other, depending on how that information comes to you, or how that story comes to you, or how it's played out in social media, or these guys are just a bunch of nut jobs, right? Like, discernment is important, and that openness in that, right? And all while in the back of my head, and edit this out if you want, is that this is very much playing out in the U.S. right now. Right? If you're following anything of what's going on with the Asbury school, right? Where some are saying there's a great work of the Spirit here, and others are going, hold on, if it's a work of the Spirit, it will look like this. And it's like, well, and yet one of the people I was following on social media, his first post was, hey guys, look where I am. And then the questions and thread all underneath that was, I look forward to hearing what your take is, right? And his whole thing was, I didn't want to assume one way or another, so I went to see. And I think that is that condemnation-free approach of, let's just taste and see. Let's just go and experience and find out, before we make a prejudiced decision. And that would probably leave us in a better spiritual state if we could get there. And it leads into when one part of the body rejoices, let's rejoice along with it as well too. Right? When one part of the body is receiving a touch from God and receiving the Spirit, I think we should celebrate that, wonderfully with discernment and with openness. And
it's interesting that we started this year by saying we want to be a place known for our love. And as I have thought about what that means, and I've said it a couple different times, I don't remember it here or not, but I think a lot of it has to do with listening, really listening and understanding the other person. People aren't being listened to now. We're being spoken to by all these messages, and what you're saying is, let's just listen, prayerfully listen. And discern through listening rather than coming with our judgment right away, or our voice or our message or whatever, right? Like, let's listen. And Yeah. Just a good reminder.
And open listening, because I think what often happens is border guards, people with that kind of authority, are trained to listen for cues. They're trying to pick out certain things.
Oh, not just
so
listen for what you're looking for.
Right,
Yeah,
but to
yeah.
actually,
That's a
so
good idea.
like
Yeah.
our authority, our power, whatever we want to call it, right, isn't to listen like that. Isn't to go, okay, keywords, trigger
Yeah.
words, that's what I'm going to ask you
Yeah.
questions that are somewhat ambiguous and
Right.
complicated to trip you up so that I can hear a certain thing,
Yeah.
but just to actually ask much more open-ended, much more just
Listen for
slow questions.
understanding.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And without
Yeah.
that bias of, oh, that's a red flag word, what does that mean? And then going down that rabbit hole, it just go,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
let's really actually,
Yeah, because how many times do we
Listen.
misinterpret our whatever red flags we have, you know?
right.
So, yeah, to really listen the whole thing. And, well, that gives us a lot to ponder as well. As always, we want to look forward as well. So the thing we've been talking about for several weeks now is Faith Night. That's this Saturday night, in case you are just tuning in for the first time. That's the Warriors, the hockey team, the local hockey team is playing on Saturday night, and we are going as a community with whoever's bought tickets.
There's
we're
like
gonna-
40 something from Lakeview going.
That's
I
awesome.
forget the exact
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
As Lori and I were talking about it yesterday. It's going to be a real fun group. So if you missed it, I'm sorry. Next February,
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
catch you then.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? You can still go to the game, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can still walk up to
Oh,
the
yeah.
ticket booth and just get yourself a ticket and
Come and find Lakeview.
Come and find us.
See
You know,
if, you know.
there's I'm sure seats, but yes,
And I might add too,
yeah.
it's actually just as equally important to go to the rest of the games of the year.
Oh, yeah, they're
Not
sure,
just
yeah.
not just middle of February. That's not the only game of the year that we want you to go to. Support the team and be a part of your community all year round.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you get opportunities to chat with people and see people and
Yeah.
whatever, and that's what we're supposed to be, salt and light, right? Wherever we go. But we want to tell you how to get your tickets. I think Lori's probably emailing you, but you can come in 9 to 12 Thursday, so you got maybe another hour or so today once this comes out on Thursday. Friday between 9 and 2:30. Or if you can't come in and get your tickets, then Lori said she could meet you at the gate at 6:30, but she would like you to let her know that that's what you're going to do so that she can look for you and whatever. So
That's great.
Those are some ways to get your tickets, or you can call the office and, you know, if there's
And-
another.
Yeah, and thank you to Lori for taking this on in terms of organizing all of this. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than you think sometimes to organize stuff like this, but it was really good.
And it's good and it's necessary. Like it feels like a lot of work, but yet it's also for the opportunity to have some discount and to be able to sit together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
think
Really
the work that she put in is awesome and worthwhile.
Right.
Yeah.
Because going to the game is fun. Like, if we're talking good, better, going is good. Going as a church family is better.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Super
Like,
fun.
it just is. And knowing that.
Whether
there-
you're watching the game or not, you're having a good time, right?
Right. And then a little bit of that, like, inter-church rivalry hypes up a little bit, too.
yeah.
And that's just even the best. That we can be a Lakeview team
Yeah.
cheering.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we won't.
Go Lakeview!
We won't cheer anyone, you know, we won't boo, but we will cheer together, and it's
Well,
all, it's
we're
just
all
a good time.
united, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat because we're all uniting around one team, even though
Yeah.
that is not
But you're going to
necessarily-
totally walk out on the ice and ask Don Richmond by what authority he does. Right? Is that part of it?
That would be awesome. Yeah.
So we're looking forward to that. Saturday night.
Yeah. Well, we hope you have a great week. It's Family Day weekend, or Family Day. Yeah, Family Day weekend. Family Day is Monday. And so hopefully you get some time to spend with our family here and with family at home or whatever, however you do that. And we look forward to seeing you. Have a great week.